Welcome back, focused learners. We are jumping right into it today because this explainer tackles a concept that is quite literally battling for our minds. Look, we all know that misinformation acts exactly like a biological virus, right? It infects a host, it mutates, and it spreads like wildfire through our social networks. But here is the incredibly good news. Psychology has actually discovered a cognitive vaccine to protect our minds. And today, we're going to learn exactly how to administer it. Section 1. The threat of brainwashing. Okay, let's dive into this. To really understand the cure, we first have to understand the infection. And for that, we need to look at a pretty high-stakes historical mystery. Meet David Hawkins. Back in 1950, he was just a 16-year-old American soldier who shipped out to fight in the Korean War. And shortly after arriving, he was wounded and captured by enemy troops. Hawkins and his fellow prisoners of war were taken to a Chinese-run camp chillingly known as Death Valley. But what actually happened there completely shocked the soldiers. I mean, they were expecting horrific physical torture, but instead, the captors opted for a totally different strategy. They wanted to infect the soldiers with a completely new ideology. So the big question is, how do you persuade an enemy soldier to just abandon their deepest, most fundamental beliefs? To pull this off, the captors used something they called a lenient policy, which relied on some really precise psychological tactics. First, they actually greeted the POWs warmly. They congratulated them on being liberated and treated them like brothers in arms. Then they used illusory truth, which is this psychological principle where repeated exposure literally increases how true a claim feels. And they did this through 6 to 7 hours of daily indoctrination. They forced the soldiers into these interactive self-reflection sessions to dismantle their own incorrect beliefs. And finally, total isolation. They only allowed mail through if it contained bad news from home. They were methodically, piece by piece, breaking down isolated minds. And you know what? It worked. When the war finally ended and Operation Big Switch began to repatriate the prisoners, 21 American POWs, including David Hawkins, voluntarily chose to stay in communist China. They literally declined to return home. Well, this sent shockwaves across America. It sparked a nationwide panic over this terrifying new concept called brainwashing. People seriously thought the soldiers had been infected with a psychological virus. Section 2. Discovering the cognitive vaccine. Naturally, the public demanded a solution. The prevailing thought at the time was, well, institutions just need to teach American ideals louder and harder. But a Yale psychologist named William J. McGuire recognized that simply spoon-feeding people more facts to support what they already believe, it doesn't actually build any real defense. So McGuire proposed this radical breakthrough idea. He asked, why not pre-expose people to the propaganda itself in weakened form? Think about how a biological vaccine actually works for a second. You don't just tell your immune system to be healthy. No, you introduce a weakened, totally harmless version of the virus so the body can build natural antibodies. McGuire theorized we could do the exact same thing with our minds. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that this concept, which McGuire brought into modern psychology as pre-bunking, actually traces its roots all the way back to antiquity. Over 2,000 years ago, Aristotle defined it as a refutational enthymeme. That's a rhetorical strategy where you state your own proofs and basically pull your opponent's arguments to pieces beforehand. Aristotle argued that the absolute best way to defend against unfair persuasion is to anticipate the arguments and dismantle them before they're even spoken. So how do we actually administer this cognitive vaccine today? Well, there are 3 crucial steps. First, you forewarn of the impending attack. Second, you provide a weakened dose. And third, you preemptively refute it. A really fantastic neutral example of this in action is from Reverend Raphael Warnock's 2020 campaign ad. He knew negative ads were coming his way, so he warned his audience right up front. Get ready, the negative ads are coming. That's the forewarning. Then he gave a weakened dose of the attack by jokingly simulating what they might say, claiming his opponents would say, he hates puppies. And finally, he preemptively refuted it with a dose of humor, adding, by the way, I love puppies. He effectively pre-bunked the political attacks before they ever even aired on TV. Section 3, Fact versus Technique Inoculation. Now, just like in medicine, this treatment plan has a few variations. If we're going to inoculate our friends and family against misinformation, we really need to know which strain of the vaccine to use for the specific infection they're facing. We basically have 2 primary vaccination strategies: fact-based, which we can think of as a narrow-spectrum vaccine, and technique-based, which is our broad-spectrum approach. Let's break down the difference, because it completely changes how you approach a conversation with someone who's being misled. Fact-based inoculation is all about preemptively providing factual antibodies against a very specific myth. For instance, there's this recurring online myth that getting a flu shot can somehow cause a flu outbreak. To administer a fact-based vaccine here, you'd warn a friend they might see this claim, and then you give them the factual antibody. That most flu vaccines use inactivated strains of the virus, making it physically impossible to cause an infection. This strategy is perfectly matched to that specific virus. But the drawback? You have to inoculate people separately for every single specific myth they might ever encounter. And that's exactly where technique-based inoculation comes in. This is your broad-spectrum vaccine. Instead of just debunking a specific fact, you expose the underlying manipulative tactic used to spread it in the first place. So you teach people how to spot impersonation, where fake experts use official-sounding titles to seem credible. Or you teach them the totally predictable plot of a conspiracy narrative. The real beauty of this approach is that it encounters way less psychological resistance. People absolutely hate feeling manipulated. Once someone learns the technique of spotting a fake expert, they are immune to that tactic, regardless of whether the topic is climate change, elections, or public health. Section 4. Active and passive defense. Okay, so now that we know the types of vaccines, how do we actually deliver these defenses to the people we care about most? Well, we can do this passively or actively. Passive inoculation is simply handing someone the facts, like having them read a preemptive refutation. It works, sure, but it's really not the strongest defense. Active inoculation, on the other hand, forces the person to do the cognitive heavy lifting themselves, because experiential learning builds much stronger associative networks in our long-term memory. Basically, we learn by doing. And this brilliantly illustrates how you can easily practice this active method in casual conversation. Simply ask a friend to generate their own counter-arguments. Ask them, hey, if someone told you the Earth is flat, can you give me 3 reasons why it's not? By making them retrieve and formulate those arguments out loud themselves, they take ownership of those mental antibodies. They become significantly harder to persuade otherwise. Ideally, we want to administer these vaccines before the person is ever even exposed. That's a prophylactic inoculation. But what happens if they've already seen the fake news? Well, that requires therapeutic inoculation. Think of it like this. The absolute ideal scenario is warning your friend about sharks before they ever get in the water. But if they've already plunged into the ocean, you don't just stay silent, right? You still warn them. They can still get out. Let me share a fascinating real-world example of therapeutic inoculation from our source material. There was this viral WhatsApp video circulating about a supposed cure for COVID-19 that literally involved shooting hot air up your nose with a hairdryer. Yeah, the video was presented by a Dr. Dan Lee Dimke, who was using all this complex medical-sounding jargon. The author treated this infection therapeutically, not by trying to argue complex medical science, but by exposing the technique. He just pointed out that Dr. Dimke was a fake expert. The guy actually had a degree in business, a PhD in education, and a background in childhood hypnosis. He had exactly 0 medical expertise. By exposing the manipulation tactic rather than fighting the actual science, the author successfully neutralized the video's credibility, even though the group had already been completely exposed to it. Section 5. Boosters and herd immunity. As we reach the final stage of our treatment plan, we really have to address how we maintain this resistance long-term. Because, unfortunately, one shot is rarely enough. Just like biological vaccines, our psychological immunity wanes over time. It just does. We lose our motivation to stay vigilant. We slowly forget the specific markers of a manipulation tactic. And frankly, we are continuously bombarded by contradictory information that just exhausts our mental defenses. If we aren't careful, the misinformation virus is going to return. So the crucial point is that we need booster shots. We have to actively re-engage the psychological immune system. And this doesn't have to be some boring lecture. It can literally be a weekly fake news quiz with your friends, playing an interactive game that simulates manipulation, or just having casual conversations where you point out a fake expert technique you saw in the wild. You are essentially giving the mind regular mugshots of the intruder, keeping your associative network super sharp and ready to strike back. But the ultimate goal here goes way beyond just the individual. It's about what researchers call post-inoculation talk. The truth is, every single one of us can play an active role in getting society one step closer to achieving herd immunity against misinformation. When you successfully inoculate someone, they tend to share that knowledge with others. They point out the fake expert to their spouse. They explain the conspiracy tactic to a coworker.
If the vicarious sharing of this cognitive vaccine outpaces the spread of the misinformation virus itself, the virus simply cannot take hold in the population. That is how we build herd immunity.
Which brings us to the absolute most important part of this explainer. The spread of misinformation always starts with a single individual making the choice to share it. But that is exactly where it can end too. You now have the tools. You understand forewarning, weakened doses, technique-based broad-spectrum defense, and the active generation of mental antibodies. So I want to leave you with this final thought. Who will you talk to today to start spreading the vaccine?